Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour. Back talking MMA, UFC KC, that is Kansas City. Although it's probably like something on Fox. But UFC Kansas City is a very easy way to describe it. Cody Saftic back in the studio.
Yes, back after taking the week off.
Well, you were in Montreal for what event was it?
TKO 38.
How was it?
Yeah, it was a great time. Honestly, a lot of good finishes. Went and checked out, or I went and hung out with Robin Ramdeen, which I really wanted to do after obviously everything happened here. And it was just a good time all in all. So the card was excellent. A couple good Ontario fighters that I knew. Ended up hanging out with some good guys. Checking out my buddy Bobby Sullivan. So all in all, it was a good weekend. But I also just want to furthermore apologize for not doing the episode last week.
You were gone.
No, it wasn't even that. It was more than that. To be perfectly honest with you, when I was doing Boogie Beatdown, a lot of time went into the research. A lot of time went into physically watching the fights. Louis Smolka. I would have watched Louis Smolka's last 10 fights. I would have told you he was down 2-0 going against Richie Voskalic prior to getting that sweet chin music in the third round. I did all that. The show is very important to me. I don't come out here and just bullshit picks. I don't come out here and bullshit what I think is going to happen. I did a lot of tape research. With that show now gone, I don't do nearly as much tape research.
And you don't have the time to do it either because you're doing other things.
Well, I've written 8 features for Fight Network Live in the last week, and I'm not saying they're great features. I'm just saying it's more time-consuming, right? My life has, for the time being, just been different all around. So it's not that I meant to disrespect anybody, by not coming out and doing the picks. It's just that I want to give you a quality product. I want to give you a quality team. I want to give you quality advice. And I just didn't really feel like I was putting it all in. So I'm not going to lie. I haven't done all the research that I would like to, but that being said, in the words of a famous Bill O'Reilly, fuck it, we'll do it live, and it's going to be good.
Good. People just want to hear you. You have such a bank of knowledge that you can just draw from that.
That's what we're going to go with.
Yeah. So, yeah. And you did well on the prelim card last week.
Yeah, 8-0 in the prelims, 1-4 on the main card, which in hindsight, it's like, why the hell would you take Patrick Cote, who had 1 foot out the door? Why the hell would Anthony Johnson possibly decide to wrestle in the early portion?
I took Anthony Johnson as well in our Toutmaster thing. I didn't realize he was going to quit fighting after the fight.
You know, it's funny you say that because I think a lot of people looking at that fight, it's like, well, if Anthony Johnson's going to win, he has to knock out Daniel Cormier real quick or he'll end up quitting on himself. Daniel Cormier has never been knocked out. He's never been finished. Anthony Johnson would have to do something that has never been done before in order to get the victory. But that's the beauty of hindsight. That's the beauty of looking back on something with it being 50-50 and being able to say, oh, I should have saw that coming. Didn't see it coming. Likewise, I didn't see Chris Weidman's illegal blows, although I did see it coming that he'd start off well and he'd fade out because that's what happens. But hey, different card. All in all, I went 9-4 on the whole card, so not the end of the world. And we're going to move on from there.
Good momentum heading into this week.
Boom. Perfect.
So let's talk about your cash team. You are fading the main event, at least from the top end. Why?
From the top end, just Demetrius Johnson's very, very high price. I mean,
$9,800.
Yeah, this is one of the greatest champions in UFC history, and I don't say that.
I'm gonna check my nerd sheet, see what's on here.
Yeah, check your nerd sheet.
Shout out to DFS Jimmy for hooking me up with this nerd sheet. It's pretty cool.
I'll tell you what, that stuff's got a lot of stats on it, but everything's a case-by-case situation. And what I mean by that is if you're looking at Demetrius Johnson and you look at how Demetrius Johnson performs against some of the best flyweights, it's exceptionally well. You look at how Demetrius Johnson fights in his last performance against Tim Elliott, a man who's cut from the UFC, returning to the UFC solely based on winning the Ultimate Fighter, and Tim Elliott actually gives this guy not a tough time. I mean, he's cleanly won 4-1, but nonetheless, it was a tougher fight. Everything's always going to be a case-by-case, style-by-style basis. Tim Elliott had certain tools that could give a guy like Demetrius Johnson troubles. I see those same issues for a guy like Wilson Hayes. Can Wilson Hayes go out there and win? Probably not. He's a 9-1 underdog, and for good reason. The issue is that you got a guy in Demetrius Johnson that's no doubt is probably not as motivated for this title defense as he is for other title defenses. What I say by that is when you've defended the belt for so long, when there's no clear-cut challenger, when the guys that are fighting you are guys that are ranked probably, within the top 10, but it's not appealing. It's not that big fight factor. It's hard to get motivated. And yes, this is a guy that probably gets motivated for all of his fights, but less motivated for this one in particular. He's got a life outside of fighting.
Can he sleepwalk to a win here by decision?
Yeah, he can sleepwalk to a win for decision. When I'm looking at Wilson Hayes for $6,400, I'm thinking, Bud D, I would play that on both a GPP and a cash game.
And you have?
Which I have. And what I really see in this fight is that, let's say it's cash game. Wilson Hayes is a durable guy. He's got a lot of paths to victory. He's a tough guy. And that if you look at the fact that if it stays standing, he's going to be giving up a lot of advantages to Demetrius Johnson. But that being said, he throws heavies. He's a guy that's going to stay in your face. He's trained at Alliance for a long time with high-level guys. He's certainly serviceable standing. On the ground, he's fantastic on the ground. A bona fide BJJ black belt, someone that will not be able to give certain difficulty to a guy like Demetrius Johnson. With that being said, he can still give him problems. He can still pose some problems. And I expect for $6,400 and a cash game team, he can survive the 5 rounds and he can score some points. On a GPP thing, though, is that he has a high ceiling. He has a high ceiling in that he could go out there and shock the world. He could go out there and upset the world and pull off that big win. That big win on a GPP, unheralded. Unheard of, I should say. That win on a cash game, just lasting the 5 rounds. Certainly.
Lasting the 5 rounds is good enough at $6,400.
Yeah, and then
for what it allows you to do with the rest of your team.
What you're allowed to do with the rest of your team because you have so much money. Wow, that makes a big difference.
Well, tell us what you did with the money.
Well, are we talking cash game or are we talking GPP
Cash
still?
game.
Okay, cash game, yeah. So at the top, we're going to go Zach Cummings, $9,400. I love Nathan Coy. Soulforce Nathan Coy, this is a guy that I've been following for a very long time. But there's no denying that he's getting older. And as a result, this guy's just got a lot of wear and tear on him. He kind of had a resurgence in The Ultimate Fighter prior to, former MFC champ, fought for Bellator, had got KO'd by Adam McDonough in pretty spectacular fashion. He gets a spot on The Ultimate Fighter. He's pretty much only got that spot on The Ultimate Fighter because it happened to be American Top Team versus the Black Zillions. He's known as one of the captains of American Top Team, so he gets a spot on the show. He does okay on the show, albeit getting choked out by Vicente Luque was certainly a low point for him because he's known for his durability. So getting knocked out by Adam McDonough in Bellator and then furthermore submitted in The Ultimate Fighter against Vicente Luque, that doesn't particularly bode well for him. He comes into the UFC, first fight in the UFC, he gets submitted. Second fight in the UFC, he ends up beating Jonathan Webb by unanimous decision. But Pat, the guy's certainly breaking down. To that point, he'll go on record and tell you, well, it's hard to work a full 9-hour day, pouring concrete, working construction, and then driving all the way to the gym, and then working in the gym for 3 hours. The guy's older. He's 34 years old now. He's got a family. He's got a life outside of fighting. It's hard to stay motivated. But the big thing is that we've been seeing cracks in him in the sense that you can finish him, you can submit him, you can TKO him. The option's there. When I look at Zach Cummings tough. First of all, he trains out of nearby Lee Summit, Missouri, so he's kind of that hometown guy. He's got roots in Kansas, so he's going to have the fans out for him. But this guy can wrestle. He can strike. If you look at that fight against Dominic Steele, which is like a 40-second knockout, certainly a good grappler. We've seen that in his last fight most predominantly. The guy can do it all. And at some point, he'll catch Coy. Whether he catches him standing, whether he catches him on the ground, he's going to catch him. I think. $9,400, I'm going to figure it out.
It's expensive.
It is expensive, but you can still figure out, you can still get what you want, especially if you're taking Wilson Hayes.
Okay, so you've used Zach Cummings on both your cash and GPP teams. And I guess the GPP strategy I kind of like, if you think that the finish can come from Zach Cummings.
Yeah.
That I just assume everyone's going to pile on to Johnson. Just if it was me and I didn't talk to you first, I'd just look at the odds. He's like minus 900 to win. Probably going to win by finish him at some point, more than likely. I haven't seen those odds yet, but I bet you they're in minus money. That even for $9,800, people will make their teams around that $9,800 that you're probably going to get a good ownership discount on Zach Cummings, if nothing else.
Yeah, see, I don't really see people playing Demetrius Johnson, and the only reason I see that is because even though he's the champion, even though he does have finishes over better guys than Wilson Hayes, he's 125 pounds. And with that, there's very much an aura of guys at 125 pounds don't finish. Certainly, they don't finish quickly. And guys are looking for $9,800 price tag. They're looking for a quick finish. And they're looking for a fast, a violent, and a predictable finish. With Wilson Hayes, it's okay, well, how's he going to finish him? Well, in prior fights, he's been able to get his submission game going. Will he be able to submit Wilson Hayes? Probably not. Well, can he TKO him? Okay, well, when was the last time Wilson Hayes got knocked out? Something like 2012 against Eduardo Dantas. But the guy's durable all around. So now you're banking on a 4th-round finish. And is a 4th-round finish still worth it? Yeah. But for that much money,
he better
is
get
it worth? He better get it. But is a 4th-round finish that much? Well, he better get a lot of takedowns and a lot of significant strikes. It just doesn't seem like people are that much into it. Now, Demetrius Johnson is a long-standing champion. In my opinion, he's one of the greatest champions. But he's not a popular champion. And for that reason, a lot of people tuning into this card, they don't even realize that it's being headlined by a UFC title fight. Free on Fox. A free title fight. They don't realize it. The UFC's coming off those big fights in New York. This card's kind of floating under the radar. And even though Demetrius Johnson seems like a lock, 9-1 favorite, certainly sounds like a lock, I don't think he'll be super, super high owned because he has a high price tag. Zach Cummings will probably be one of the guys that is high paid. I think Tim Elliott at $9,000 will also be paid. And Tom Duquesnoy.
Even you're struggling with the names now. Is it actually Duquesnoy?
I had a couple drinks before I came here. I told you that, all right? It's Pierre's last day at work. Another one.
I'm joining after.
Well, I joined before, okay? Lunch was an option. It was a terrible option. So if I'm stuttering or slurring some of my words now, you know why. Tom Duquesnoy, fire kid from France. This guy's unbelievable. We'll get that for the GPP. But for the cash, Zach Cummings is safe. I like him.
I did want to give a big shout out. We don't have a guest this week, but we had Kyle on 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. He cashed big time last week. I think he won $24,000.
Yeah, he made a... it's funny, too, because I saw someone reach out to him, and they were like, oh, you're not on the Pat Mayo Hour. He's like, I'm keeping all the money for myself.
And he did.
And
he won everything. He won the $333 DraftKings contest. So he won that after being on the show. Mike Leone was on the Masters show last week and won $150,000
Good times
on DraftKings playing golf. So it's a week for someone.
Yeah.
Probably you,
like
not me.
Big shoes.
So you went with Tim Elliott for the second part of your cash team.
Yeah, Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott's actually coming in. Tim Elliott's going to be in the
my
prelim
wife
section.
is calling me. I got to tell her. I got to decline the call. She's not going to like that.
Booty call. Poor Sam.
I know.
Isn't it your birthday? I'm having a birthday party tonight.
Yeah.
Old man Pat.
I don't want to talk about my age.
Oh, you're using Just for Men now, Pat Mayo?
I need to use Just for Men. I'm just picking out gray hairs earlier.
It's funny. I just made that up right now. But you admitted it. That's how I get a lot of my info, by the way. You come up with some...
Just make a statement and see how people react?
You have no idea how often I've gotten good tidbits off that. You make a ridiculous statement. Someone's like, who told you about that? Was it Jimmy? And you're like, what? No. Jimmy? Who's Jimmy? Getting back to this team, which I do believe is a fairly decent team. We got Zach coming to the top, 9,400. Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott's on the prelims of this Kansas City card. First of all...
You're the prelim master.
I'm the prelim master. This guy's actually coming off a fight against the former champ, or the current champ, Demetrius Johnson, in his last fight just 4 months ago. He's tough, man. Only 30 years old. He's already fought in the UFC. He's a grinder. He's durable. He's fought some of the best guys. The UFC released this man. He goes to Titan FC. In Titan FC, he went 3-0. He captured the company's 125-pound title. 2 of those 3 fights went to decision. He got a submission in the other one. But he's been able to fight 5 rounds largely in those Titan FC fights. Goes to the Ultimate Fighter, wins the Ultimate Fighter, gets a shot against Demetrius Johnson. Looks good in the first round against the fight against Demetrius Johnson. Thing is, DJ, he's the champ. He's very versatile. He makes the necessary adjustments moving forward, gets the win over Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott fought 5 rounds that night. This is actually the first time Tim Elliott's been scheduled to fight 3 rounds for more than 2 years. He fights 5 rounds. He's got a fantastic gas tank. Furthermore, he's born in Kansas City and will certainly be the hometown guy. With endless gas tank and a good wrestling background, good grappling base, I think he's a prime talent to take on a guy like Louis Smolka, who at 5'9" is certainly tall for the flyweight division. And though he's win by the submission exchanges, die by the submission exchanges, you look at his last 2 fights against Brandon Moreno and furthermore Ray Borg, he's been getting out-grappled soundly against good, top-heavy, strong, physical grapplers. That's what Tim Elliott is.
Is that the week that you had Marino as like the punt and he won in like 10 seconds?
Yeah, it was like a 6-1 favorite or 6-1 underdog, and he gets a first-round guillotine choke. So from that, it's like, oh well, it's a fluke victory. But then I saw Ray Borg beat him at UFC 207 in Vegas, and once again, it's like Ray Borg is young, he's very strong, he's front-heavy, he's top-heavy, and he will just beat you down if you give him the opportunity.
So Elliott might fit into that mold.
I think he fits in the exact same mold. The one thing is that $9,000 would certainly indicate that you're going to get a finish. And though it's possible, because Tim Elliott does have a good grappling game.
For cash teams, we don't necessarily need a finish. We need a winner.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, I think that's why in a cash game team, I think he's fairly safe. I should say he's fairly safe. But also, nowadays when you're looking at the new DraftKings scoring system, a guy that can go out there and get the takedowns, they can win those grappling exchanges, can get multiple submission attempts, or furthermore just ground transitions that are going to score points and some significant strikes along the way, they're going to score well. The way he matches up against a guy like Louis Smolka is that Louis Smolka's 5'9". Tim Elliott doesn't want to stand. I met Tim Elliott in Vegas. He's a short little guy, and he fights at 125 pounds. He's not looking to stand all the way out, and he's not looking to stand all the way in. He's got a very Dominic Cruz-esque style about him, but make no mistake about it. He's looking to get in the inside. He's looking to get you down. When he gets him down, I think he's able to control him, and I think he threatens with submission attempts. If you ask me, is it possible Tim Elliott submits Louis Smolka? Yeah, it's definitely possible. It's just more than likely that he'll just grapple him for 3 rounds, get the unanimous decision victory. And for a cash game, $9,000, I'll play that.
All right, next fighter. You're going Sterling over Mendez.
Yeah, Sterling. He was 12-0 to start his pro career. A lot of big things coming for the Funk Master out in New York. Matt Serra, Ray Longo trained fighter. Very, very talented guy. Bellator makes a fielding offer for this guy. They want this guy bad. He's a free agent. As I mentioned, 12-0, looks good, talks good, young kid, got all the talent in the world. Bellator makes him an offer. UFC qualifies that offer. They say, you know what, we'll match it, and we're going to keep Aljamain Sterling for ourselves. They keep Aljamain Sterling. He takes on Brian Caraway. Brian Caraway, kind of like a gatekeeper of the division. He loses a split decision to Brian Caraway. It's a close fight. He deserved to lose the fight, by the way. But it's a close fight, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, first loss of your pro career. That kind of sets him a little bit back, but no big deal. He gets a second follow-up fight against Rafael Assunção. Now, Rafael Assunção, he's a top-rated guy. He's super tough. What happens to Sterling? Loses a split decision again. Another close fight. I thought he lost to Caraway. I thought he beat Assunção. But there's no denying that they're close fights both ways. So now you're 12-0, 27 years old, you're a young kid, top of the world. Well, now you're 12-2, and you've lost your last two fights, and, well, now you're on the prelims with a free fight card. Times are tough for Aljamain Sterling, but there's no denying that he's ultra talented. And I'm looking at this fight against Tanquinho Mendes. Augusto Tanquinho Mendes is one of the best BJJ black belts at 135 pounds. He's probably the most accredited Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in the bantamweight division. He's got fantastic Jiu-Jitsu. But when he made his UFC debut against Cody Garbrandt, first of all, Cody Garbrandt's the champ now. Second of all, he took it on short notice, didn't even make weight. But the fact remains is that if he can't take you down, he has to stand with you. And quite frankly, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. So he loses the fight to Cody Garbrandt and he gets knocked out. His follow-up out against Frankie Saenz. Frankie Saenz is a wrestler with decent striking. So Saenz doesn't want to take him down because of the jiu-jitsu. He can't take Saenz down because Saenz got better wrestling. So they strike. He wins a split decision in a close fight. He had moments. His striking did look improved. But when I look at this fight against Sterling, he's got to get the fight to the ground. If he doesn't, he's going to be striking for 3 rounds. And whereas I normally say he's going to lose the striking exchanges and lose the fight, Sterling has appeared to have next to no punching power. He just doesn't. He's got one finish by TKO amongst his UFC victories, but for the most part, it's water gun punches out there. Maybe he's got a decent kick, but he's just going to look to pitter-patter and score some points. That's likely what happens here. It likely goes 15 minutes. It's likely Sterling picking apart at him. That's why I put him on a cash game team. Is it possible for Sterling to land that one shot? It's possible, but I don't necessarily expect it. Tanquinho is very versatile on the ground. He likely doesn't get finished on the ground, and that's where Sterling does his best move, his best work, so to speak. So it'll stay standing. Sterling gets the decision. Won't be pretty.
Okay, next you're going Jeremy Stephens.
Jeremy Stephens, if he touches you, you're absolutely going to sleep. Against Moicano, this guy's, once again, he's a young Brazilian upstart. He's got good submission games. Paul Shaughnessy, I would have loved to talk to him about the fight because he does like Moicano quite a bit. He looked good in his UFC debut against Tom Nitamaki, getting the submission. It's his last fight against Zubair Tuhugov. I don't think I would have ever picked this guy to beat Tuhugov, and I didn't. And Paul actually picked him. But it's the close nature of that. He can have a close fight with you. He can push you in certain elements. He's good on the ground. He's versatile striking.
But you think Stephens catches him?
Stephens is just a beast. I mean, Little Heathen's been around for a very, very long time. He's got very, very heavy hands. And once again, I've got Stephens on a cash game team, but not on a GPP, despite the fact that really he's a career GPP guy. It's that he's getting a little bit older, and even though he's got a lot of power, his timing's not there, his speed's not there, and he's definitely comfortable with just dictating the action, dictating the pace, getting the decision. Moicano's a guy that technically 10-0-1, has never been finished. I don't expect Stephens to finish him. Although when you're dealing with that kind of power that Jeremy Stephens has, it's always going to be a possibility.
So, next player.
Next player, we got Ketlin Vieira. This is solely because I have no money left over.
Yeah, 77. And you went down to 64 as well. So 77's like, it's not scumming it all the way.
It's not scumming it all the way. Ketlin Vieira, she's a Brazilian standout in terms of wrestling. So even though Brazil's not known for their wrestling acclimate, they're not known for a great wrestling program. This is a girl that competed for the Brazilian national team. I believe she got a bronze medal in 2010, but she's been wrestling for a very, very long time. She comes to the UFC, undefeated record, Nova União trained. She takes on Kelly Fashholz. Kelly Fashholz is pretty durable. Kelly Fashholz has got a lot of good tricks up her sleeve, and a girl that certainly, I'm not going to call her a gatekeeper of the division, but will give you a stern test. Now, that was a very close fight. Could have gone either way. Ketlin Vieira ended up getting a split decision off of Kelly Fashholz. When I look at $7,700, I think, okay, she's very wrestling heavy.
Can she win?
She can win. She can win. But when you look at Ashley Evans-Smith, Ashley Evans-Smith's predominant background is also wrestling. And even though she's wrestled at a decent level collegiately, she wrestled for some 4 different universities. So it's not like she ever had a standout career at one place. She's had a decent career at multiple different places. When you see her in her UFC fights, she's strong, she's durable, she's tough. But there's no doubting that you see her in a fight like Marion Renault. And, well, thought she lost that fight to Marion Renault. And if she's going to beat someone, she's got to go out there and she's got to use her strength, her physicality, and beat a girl like Veronica Macedo, pound her out. Get the takedown, pound her out. But I'm looking at this fight with Ketlen Vieira, and I think Ketlen Vieira's got a good wrestling base as well. So if it stays standing, I've got 2 girls that are mediocre at striking. Ketlen Vieira could squeak out this decision. Similar to what I would have said about Des Green last week, because I had Des Green, prelim fighter. I had all the prelims for some reason. Is that you can't overlook this guy. He's got the wrestling base to just keep the fight standing. And if he keeps the fight standing, Josh Emmett can't strike. So what happens is it's going to be a close fight, but there's no denying that someone might be able to edge it out. And the underdog, if you're going to give me those kind of odds on a guy like Des Green, I'm going to play it. If you're going to give me the odds that I get on Ketlen Vieira, that she can keep the fight standing and outpoint Ashley Evans Smith, I would never recommend this on a GPP in a million years. But hey, in a cash game, yeah, I'm going to take that play.
All right, let's talk GPP then.
Okay, GPP.
You're going Cummins at the top.
Yeah, then we got Tom Duquesnoy.
UFC debut?
UFC debut. He's from France, 23 years old. Never actually fought professionally in France, as technically cage fighting is still barred in that part of the world. Or that country, I should say. But my God, this guy's good. And I don't want to get ahead of myself and certainly take a lot of flack on the comment section, which I'm sure by that point we've already taken a lot of flack in the comment section. But this kid might be in very, very many ways. He reminds me of a Conor McGregor. Now, I watched all of Conor McGregor's fights prior to signing with the UFC because at Fight Network, we carried the Cage Warriors product. So I had to work a lot of those events, and he was their undefeated European champion. Not undefeated, but highly touted European prospect, 2-weight world champion, European champion, coming through the ranks, making a lot of sound, finishing guys, gets signed to the UFC. When I look at Duquesnoy, it's the same thing. This guy's won not world titles. I don't want to keep saying that. He's won European titles at both 135 pounds and 145 pounds.
And what's his fight at?
This is 135 pounds, which is his better weight class. This is his natural weight class. He's only 23 years old. He's ultra talented. He goes out there, and Pat, I mean, whether he gets it done on the ground, whether he gets it done standing, the guy's just very versatile. He's very talented. He can get it done wherever.
Who is Patrick Williams?
Well, I'm getting at that. So with Duquesnoy, he said he's from France. So how many high-level guys are training at France? I don't know. But prior to he wins his couple fights ago at 145 pounds, he got a split decision. And that's where you see that maybe there are vulnerabilities to him at 145 pounds because he's not the biggest guy. But he's going to be making his debut here at 135. So Bellator wanted to sign this guy. And the UFC wanted to sign this guy. And a number of Russian promotions wanted to sign this guy. And his local Bama promotion, they want to retain this guy. A lot of guys wanted this guy's service. For the UFC, they got the money. They won the bidding war.
They also get to say, hey, you can be in the UFC. Which is a lot more impressive than saying you're fighting in Russia.
Absolutely. And what does this kid do? This kid comes stateside and he works full-time out at Greg Jackson's, right? So he's training alongside some of the sports best. He is a young, blossoming talent. Sky's the limit for him. Patrick Williams, meanwhile, comes into this fight. He's 35 years old. Now, he's a former D1 wrestler out of ASU, Arizona State University, and a guy that's very athletic, very strong, very stocky and powerful, and obviously has that wrestling base. Comes to the UFC, no good. Now he goes to Mexico, and he takes a fight with Alejandro Perez. Now, he's to the tune of, I think, a plus 140 going into the fight, so he is a betting underdog, but not a huge betting underdog. But just keep in mind the guy's known for his wrestling. I mean, that's what he does. He wants to go in there. He wants to take you down. Pretty much wants to hold you down. That's what Pat Williams does. But he goes out there against Alejandro Perez. Local guy, hometown guy. He rocks him with the right hand. As Perez is rocked with his right hand, he tries to clinch up with him. He grabs him in a standing guillotine choke, chokes him out unconscious. 23 seconds into the fight. Wow, that's awesome. Huge win, underdog victory. Let's go Pat Williams. That was 2 years ago. Hasn't fought since. He's had a number of injuries since then. And when you consider he was 33 then, and he's 35 now, we just don't know what's really changed for him. But he's fairly one-dimensional, even though he has the submission and the big right hand, is that he's fairly one-dimensional in that he's going to throw the right hand and he's going to blast W to the ground. If he can get you if he can get you to the ground, he can hold you down. But against Duquesnoy's good on the ground. You know, he's got good jiu-jitsu. And he's hard to take down. And if you got to stand with him, he's going to have every opportunity in the world to clip you and knock you out. If you let him get on top of you, you're in a world of trouble. And if you get on him, he's still versatile. 23, good gas tank. This is a good step up for him in his career, and I think it's the right time. And my comparisons between him and McGregor are that he's 23 and he's a 2-weight world European champion, coming from credible English MMA promotions. Conor McGregor, when he debuted in the UFC, he was a 24-year-old two-weight European champion from a credible English promotion. And that's not where the similarities end, you know? I mean, Connor talks a great game. This kid doesn't.
He probably speaks to Francais.
But skill-wise, I mean, I think he's talented. He's still got a long ways to go before he can achieve anything remotely close to those levels. But I'm really hyped up for this signing.
Andrew Sanchez, $8,900.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much so. As much so do I really like Andrew Sanchez. When we're looking at his opponent, he's just, possibly made out of glass. I mean, Anthony Smith, if you look at his whole career, he's got something 11 losses, and he's been finishing 10 of them. Now, his last time out for the UFC, or his last time losing against Cesar Mutanche Ferreira, he actually lost a decision, which was surprising considering that he normally gets finished in those fights. But he's just a guy that there's many ways to beat Smith. You can get him to the ground and you can submit him. He's 6'4" for the weight class, so he's very tall. He's got a very high point of gravity, and you can take him down.
And he probably has real long limbs, too, to grab onto.
Super long limbs. And then when you see it's like something like a 78-inch reach or something, it's like, oh, you know what? He's probably going to use that distance and, come out there, and he's got great strikes. He throws nasty elbows. He's really tall. Okay, you know what? I can see it. But he gets clipped, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, can't take the punch particularly well. But he's a tough guy all around. When I look at Andrew Sanchez comes from that collegiate wrestling background. He's fantastic on the ground. And even in certain fights, like on The Ultimate Fighter against Eric Spicely, landing that head kick knockout a minute into the fight, man, Eric Spicely is a fairly tough guy. Andrew Sanchez can strike. He can wrestle. Now, his last time against Trevor Smith, that was another fight where you're taking on a guy that's not known for his durability. So you should have been able to finish him, and he was not. And it was his return to 185 pounds, which I thought he'd be a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger at 185, and the finish never materialized. The thing is that Trevor Smith is more of a survivor, Even though he's been knocked out plenty of times in his career, if he's hurt, he's looking to survive. He's not looking to push the pace. Anthony Smith only really has one gear, and that's forward all the time. He's dangerous. I mean, he can clip a lot of guys. He can hurt a lot of guys. But El Dirte, Andrew Sanchez, I'm a big fan of his. I've been watching him for a while. I think he's ultra talented. I think he gets the fight to the ground. Furthermore, I think he finds the submission. And if he doesn't find the submission, Smith will get desperate. Smith's not there just to hang out and take damage. He'll try to get up and get submitted in the process. But the fact that he's going to be trying the entire time will create those openings for Sanchez.
All right, you got Devin Clark at 8,300.
Devin Clark, man, what a bummer that was in his debut against Alex Nicholson. I think this guy's supremely talented. He's a junior college national champion, or a guy that wrestled at a high level, in junior college. And then when he signs for MMA, he got picked up by Dana White's looking for a fight. So he comes into Sioux Falls. He's from Sioux Falls. So it's the local story. Oh, we're going to have a guy from the area. Okay, no problem.
I feel like we took this guy last time.
2 times ago.
Okay.
And just not good at all. He got clipped by Alex Nicholson, and just the way he got clipped, not like a phantom punch or anything. He certainly did get grazed, but he went out, and he went out hard. And it was a real eye opener that if you just keep in the fight against him, he could take you down. He's super athletic. He can expend a lot of energy trying to take you out, but ultimately just stay in the fight long enough to land that one shot, and you can put this guy down. His last fight against Josh Stansbury. Josh Stansbury is a big, strong, durable guy out of Ohio, and Devin Clark faced some adversity against him, but he showed that he's learning, certainly. This is a guy that, even though he got signed to the UFC to fight in Sioux Falls, and he's from Sioux Falls, he had left his gym and he went out to Greg Jackson's Jackson Winklejohn team in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and had spent a lot of time with John Jones. Now, John Jones had all those positive tests and had a bunch of crazy stuff go back, but he stayed out there. And even now, you still see him. He's still out there. He's working at a high level, only 27 years old. You give me a young, talented, athletic guy from a wrestling background, and you put him in a super camp, you might not get the results right away. You might not get the results in 2 fights. But now that he's in his 3rd fight in the UFC, I think that this is the perfect time for him to take on a guy like Jake Collier and really show some of those improvements. Collier's durable. He's tough. But, I mean, if Dong Yang can take him out, Devin Clark can take him out, and that's what I'm expecting here.
Robert Whitaker over Jacare.
Yeah, okay.
How does that work?
This is why this is a GPP, my friend. $7,500. First of all, I mean, we're going for it, right? It's a GPP. If you look at everybody that's around that price point, I don't think anybody has as much upside as a guy like Whitaker.
And you picked against like the 3 other guys in this range too.
Well, there's the other thing, right? The other guys that I could have conceivably picked, like maybe Louis Smolka.
You can take Bobby Green. He's in this range?
I thought about it, but Bobby Green's a crazy person. I can't get behind him. I love Bobby Green. Don't get me wrong. King Bobby, when he fought Crazy Horse, that was like a massive changing of the guard, passing the torch for me. I love that moment. When he fought in Affliction, Dan Lozon, he kicks Dan Lozon on the balls. And true story, kicks Dan Lozon on the balls. He gets a timeout. He's hanging over the ropes, and he looks over, and it's Donald Trump, who's not the president at the time. It's Donald Trump and Oscar De La Hoya. And he goes, "Ah, shit, it's Oscar De La Hoya." It's like he just kicked a guy in the balls, man. Like, he loses that fight. And I've always really liked Bobby Green. Bobby Green's brother apparently looks a lot like Bobby Green, and apparently some guys want to kill the guy. So Bobby Green apparently has to lay low and stay on people's couches because people confuse him with his brother and are trying to kill him. This is according to Bobby Green. So even though I love King Bobby, I really do, I have faded him massively in his last couple of fights because, quite frankly, if he's going to beat you, it's going to be a really close fight. And if he's going to lose to you, you're just the more skilled guy. This is a fight with very much so where he's taking on a bigger, stronger, younger Russian fighter who should have his number. Now, can Bobby Green make magic happen? Shit, possibly. I don't see it happening.
But with Whitaker, he could win?
Well, here's the thing with Whitaker, right? And I took a little bit of flack about saying this last time, but look at that fight between Jacare and Tim Boetsch, right? So if you're Jacare, you're likely the number one middleweight in the world. And I say that because even though he's not the champion, he's better than the champion, Michael Bisping. And then the number one contender, which is Yoel Romero, the last guy to beat Jacare, it's a split decision. It's a split decision I really thought he should have won. And it's a split decision that saw Yoel Romero grab the fence a whole lot because Yoel Romero just loves to cheat. So I honestly think Jacare is one of the best guys in the world. Listed at 37, shit. Could be older than that, to be honest with you.
Is he from Cuba?
He's from Brazil.
Okay.
So them and Russia and Cuba have been known to
fudge that up a little bit?
Iran does the same thing. They'll just falsify the birth certificate. Whatever, doesn't matter. If he is 37, he's an old 37. But what I'm getting at is that he's likely the number one guy in the world. So why is the number one guy in the world taking on a top 10 guy like Whitaker? Because he doesn't get the fight with Bisping. Bisping's probably going to fight
Georges St-Pierre?
Georges St-Pierre. Now it's like, okay, well, maybe he'll fight Yoel Romero. No, he already fought Yoel Romero, and neither guy's interested in that rematch again because, shit, pay me some dollars for that fight. They're not just looking to take it to stay active. So what they're doing for him is they're giving him guys like Tim Boetsch and Chris Camozzi and Whitaker that they're
So
thinking,
you think he's going to overlook one of these fights at some point?
Yeah. And furthermore to that point, Tim Boetsch actually hit him with a clean shot last time. Thing is, Tim Boetsch is old, and even though he's a judo black belt, once he gets taken down, he's done. Whitaker's a guy that you can hurt. He can come back from adversity. And I kind of do expect him to do that. I expect him to go out there and, put it this way, and this is way different leagues, but he fought Colton Smith back in the day. And Colton Smith's a very, very, very one-dimensional wrestler. And he had this game plan going in. He was a young kid at the time. He had this game plan of leaving one hand all the way down and one hand up.
Why?
Because Colton Smith kept trying to shoot on him, and he had one arm all the way down to just whoops, underhook, stop the takedown every time. And he beat Colton Smith. And I think he was a dog coming into that fight. And it was a good win for him. It was like, hey, that was a good little game plan. Good for this guy. And since then, I just think he's building up. I think he's getting better. I think he's a guy that has a bright future, and he has a lot of punching power.
High ring IQ on him?
Fairly decent ring IQ on
Okay.
him. I'm not going to say overly high. He got into a striking war with Stephen Thompson. I was like, why the hell is it? What are you trying to prove here, man? But he's learned from that stuff, and he's a young guy, and he's got a high ceiling. So he comes into this Jacare Souza fight, and Jacare is undeniably the big favorite. And Jacare is already, people like myself are saying, oh, he's the number one guy in the world. And he knows he deserves that title shot. And he's taken a series of stay busy fights. But one of those stay busy fights is going to blow up in his face. And you're giving him a guy that has good takedown defense, a lot of power in his hands, and is young and is agile. And by the way, Jacare, you're fighting Whitaker. Who? Whitaker, you're fighting Jacare. Shit, it might as well be the Super Bowl because this is a big opportunity for him. And I think he can capitalize on that. On a GPP, $7,500? Yes, please. I'm going to take it because GPPs, you're only going to win them if you take that risk. And that's what I'm looking to cash in on here.
And then you round it out with Wilson Hayes on the team again. $6,400.
If he comes through, I find it shocking that I'm going to lose, right? but even if he doesn't, I mean, you're not likely going to win a GPP, but you can still place high.
Yeah, you can still cash.
Yeah, if you look at traditionally Demetrius Johnson, he's gone 5 rounds with lesser talent before, and he's also gone, 4 minutes and 59 seconds against Kyoji Haraguchi. Finished him with 1 second left in the fight. but you can bank rounds in. And I talk about this all the time. Certainly with cash game, if you're going to give me 5 rounds to work with, I'll take it. This is a GPP. I need the finish or a good performance of Wilson
What
Hayes.
is the most likely path to victory for Hayes? Submission?
Yeah, I would have to say so.
But that could come at any point.
It could come at any point. He's got a great submission game. But when I look at Demetrius Johnson, you're looking at a guy that historically has smashed pretty much. Yeah, he's faced a couple moments of adversity against a guy like John Dodson in the first fight, but has pretty much handled everybody that's ever coming across him. But you look at that last fight, and Tim Elliott finally maybe just shows a little bit of chink in the armor. A little bit of a wrinkle in the game of Demetrius Johnson that maybe you can exploit. Now, here's the thing you got to realize. Looking at that last weekend, guys like a Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman was a dominant, unstoppable champion. The same way that Johnny Hendricks was. And the same way that Anthony Pettis was. And I'm not saying those guys on steroids. Someone on the comment section is saying those guys are on steroids. What I'm saying is that at some point or another, the game passes you by. That's just the way it is. If Tom Brady was a prize fighter, he'd be done by now. Because you can't just get a fantastic O-line to protect you while you're 38 years old. You got to go in there and you got to do it yourself. Demetrius Johnson is in the 125-pound division. If you look at heavyweight, the top contenders are 35. You can be bigger. You can be slower. Everybody's a little bit slower. They're 250 pounds. You look at light heavyweight, a little older too. You look at middleweight, a little younger. Welterweight, a little younger. I'm talking the average age of a top 15 contender, a little younger. Lightweight, a little younger. This guy's 125 pounds. And Wilson Hayes is no spring chicken. What I'm saying is at some point, the speed starts to leave you. At some point, being invincible catches up to you. At some point, the wrong stylistical matchup gets presented to you and it gives you trouble. And is Wilson Hayes that bad that he's a 9-1 underdog? No, he really isn't. I lost in John Wayne Hibbert the other day. He was a 6.5. That was brutal. What I'm saying is that Wilson Hayes has a chance. And on a GPP, I'm going to take the chance. On a cash game, I'm still going to take the chance. You and I both know if you want to win these things, you probably got to field 10 lineups. I'm not going to give you 10 lineups. I'm going to give you one lineup that I really think does the trick. And I think this is a decent lineup.
Nice. All right, before we get out of here, any middle of the pack people that we didn't talk about that you can see as a knockout potential? Maybe one underdog, one other favorite?
You know what? I was really going for the knockouts. Clearly, that's something that I wanted to jump on. Jake Collier could just as easily knock out Devin Clark, by the way. Devin Clark, like I said, the fight with Alex Nicholson's just a big, tough dude. He's not particularly talented. He's not particularly skilled, but he's very big for the weight class, and he throws heavies. And that heavy's all it took. And Jake Collier fights very much the same way.
So you could make that GPP lineup the same way and just swap those two in and out.
You could. Now, Roy Nelson, I've always loved Roy Nelson as a GPP play. The thing is, against Alexander Volkov, Volkov is very tall. He's fairly sound defensively.
Decision fight?
It seems like it's a decision fight and a boring decision fight. And with your Roy, you're in your 40s now, and your fights are just increasingly slower pace. He really needs to land that big right hand, but he's another guy that the time's just passed, and it's not 2011 anymore. It's not 2012 anymore. You can't just go out there with one trick and land that one trick. Unfortunately, that big right, overhand right, that's his real trick. Can he go out and take down Alexander Volkov, who's a lot taller than him? Yeah, absolutely. Would he be better on the ground? Yeah, absolutely. The thing is with Roy Nelson is that he never really sticks to the logical game plan, and therefore it's hard to bet him. Look at that women's fight. It's a fantastic fight, Rose Namajunas versus Michelle Waterson. Just once again, you've got two highly ranked 115 pounders that are talented, and they're durable, and they're crafty. And I think Rose edges it out ever so slightly, but there's no denying that Michelle Waterson's on top of her game. Rose has motivation issues. Sometimes she comes out there and she's motivated and she's confident. It's not a motivation issue. She's probably always motivated. It's a confidence issue. She doesn't believe in herself, she's no good. When she does believe in herself, she's fantastic. I look at Waterson, and traditionally I haven't been overly impressed. Yeah, huge win over Paige Van Zandt. Paige is just a kid. What has Michelle really, really done? But she's in a good place in her career. I mean, she has a kid. She's looking to support. She knows that she's realistically one big win away from getting a crack at the UFC title. And this is that big win. So I think she's going to come in fantastic shape. But I would fade that both on GPP and cash games. Not a good read. Not great value for either one of them. Looking at the rest of the card, that's pretty much it. Could Smolka pull it out? Absolutely. That's pretty much it. I don't want to say this card's up front because shit. 8-0 and I got fucked last weekend. But it seems pretty straightforward, you know what I mean? Like, I expect a lot of the big favorites to get the job done. I expect a lot of those close fights to go in the favor of the champion. And as far as DK teams goes, I think the players that I selected were the right players. The players below that, they're going to need something big. Is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. But I think I put forth the best foot here.
All right. before we get out of here, are all those features that you've been writing and doing, are those like just TV only, or are they going up to the web?
They're all on the web, right? They're all YouTube for the most part.
What's
the
your
thing
favorite
is,
one?
What's my favorite
Yeah.
one? Well, I really like the Bellator one I did today, but that's probably just because I'm trying to promote it because it's coming up. But like I talked to John Wayne Parr, the Muay Thai legend, 120 fights in the career. The guy's absolutely the gunslinger, John Wayne Parr. I mean, you should know him, but if you don't, check him out. But I used to do interviews back in the day. A lot of the time it's Bellator fighters, but I just been getting back to a lot of that. And the features, I mean, I might not voice all of them, but I got to write all of them. And
I'll voice them for you.
I would like you to voice some stuff for us, but they said that they don't want the same voice right across the board because,
Yeah,
it'll...
change them up.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's a work in progress. So I appreciate you for having me back on the show. And I do apologize that it was certainly not my best effort today. And I will make a conscious decision moving forward to not
People
train.
just like to see people talking about MMA. That's what people like.
You don't even have Viz on your show, man. Bookie Beatdown was such a better show.
Yeah, I know.
People, you should, if you're still watching the show by this point, comment how better of a show Bookie Beatdown was and how you want it back. You'll never come back, so don't bother commenting. But
We still got this. You still get to talk.
yeah, the good old days. Playing hockey with Paul Shaughnessy tonight.
Then coming to my birthday.
Yeah, hopefully get there around 10. Should be good.
Perfect. We're good to go. Cody Saftic, check him out on Twitter at Cody Saftic. He's not wrong about Bookie Beatdown either, folks. Like, that's real news. That's real talk for you. But this is what you're stuck with now. You're stuck with me, and if you do want to follow me and tell me how much you hate me, follow me on Twitter at the PME. You can always use those interactions. Those are fantastic. I don't care either way. Say whatever you want. You can subscribe to the Pat Mayo Hour for the audio versions if you like to listen on your phone, on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, Audio Boom, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. And for the video version, you can check out the Fantasy Sports Network and Fight Network YouTube pages for the complete uncut versions. But I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.